Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Devoted221, which probably means nothing to you, but to me it is inconsequential. I still need to introduce myself in these videos. If you clicked on this video from your feed, or maybe you even came here from my recent reel, which is about this video, welcome. In short, this video is the summary of my 10th and current run-through of Baldur's Gate 3 on Honor Mode, with one particular goal in mind. We need to achieve every single achievement in one run. The only thing I'm really not certain about is whether or not I can actually reload my save file after finishing the game on Honor Mode at least once. Which, if I can't do, then I won't be able to get the other endings, which do have achievements related to them. So I have to speedrun them afterwards if I can't do that. But we're going to find that out once we get there. This video is pretty much the compilation of about 20 hours solely dedicated to completing Act 1. I essentially adventured to every single area that I could, so I can set myself up for the future encounters in Acts 2 and 3. Once I finish this challenge in its entirety, I actually plan on releasing a video where I talk about my extended thoughts about Baldur's Gate as a whole. I have a lot to begin with already. But that probably won't come out till at least the end of May, if not maybe even in June, depending on how run number 10 goes. After that, I'm really going to be 100%ing various games in my Steam library, so consider Baldur's Gate as kind of a pilot episode for this series, I guess, to call it. But let's get on to the setup. For this and also future videos, I'm actually going to be referring to my character as Tav. It's the default starting name, and it seems to be what most people who play Baldur's Gate call their character when they create one instead of using an origin. So even though my character's name is Durjan, I'm going to be referring to them as Tav for simplicity. Since I've actually made this character 9 other times, I've basically become a speedrunner of character creation. But to your benefit, I'm going to explain it a little bit. Tav is an Oath of the Crown's paladin. Paladin not only grants us heavy armor proficiency, D10s for our hit dice, the ability to smite, we also get high starting charisma, which benefits any social encounter, which anyone who has played the game knows there are plenty of. I actually choose Paladin for one specific reason, which is the channel divinity, Divine Sense. It grants us advantage on attack rolls against Celestials, Fiends, and Undead for a certain number of turns at the cost of a bonus action and the charge of channel divinity. The other boon of Oath of the Crowns specifically is Righteous Clarity, which grants creatures attack rolls a bonus equal to their proficiency bonus, which is really great on higher leveled allies. Other than that, we pick our spells, level out our scores so that we actually end up favoring Charisma and Constitution, pretty ourselves up, and then we move on to the Prologue. So the only notable thing about the Prologue is getting the achievement for killing Commander Zulk. Other than that, we just actually have to complete the Prologue to get another achievement, which is already 2 out of like the 50 or something we need to get. Killing Zulk isn't actually that hard, but it isn't that easy either. In essence, we pretty much have to get Zulk to drop his greatsword with the command spell. That turns Zulk's damage from a very high average per round to only about 12 per round if he lands both unarmed strikes. I actually use Righteous Clarity on the Mind Flayer to grant it an extra bonus to its attack rolls. It's level 5, and that's an automatic +3 on top of its +3, plus whatever it gets for using its tentacles. So it's minimum +6, which is pretty good for the Mind Flayer. We pretty much, after that, just start whittling down Zulk's massive health pool. One problem that is pretty easily solvable is the Cambions showing up once Zulk hits approximately 50% of his total health. This is solved by simply piling every chest that we found up until this point in the entrance chamber before the door, disabling their ability to fly through them if you actually place them in the door, and the chest being too tough to break through makes it so that they cannot enter for at least a couple rounds if they actually deal some damage to the chest. We then abuse these Nautiloid tanks that are strewn about the room, and we actually find one of these also next to Shadowheart, and we wait until Zulk and the Mind Flayer are both around 20 hit points and use Shadowheart's Firebolt to completely blow these creatures to Kingdom Come. This nets us about 150 XP to begin with, and earn just the achievement for killing Zulk. One of our biggest worries about honor mode is that any fight can turn deadly if I end up misclicking, I do a misplay, or an enemy gets a nasty crit or two on our characters. This basically boils down to we need to take each fight seriously. Our first big fight is the bandits outside of Jurgel's temple, which is more commonly known as the Overgrown Temple. But yeah, so I always try to use Warren, which is the little gnome archer at the start, to get the achievement related to killing a creature with fall damage. I actually managed to overkill him by a lot before the fall damage can even kick in, so it just means I have to find another target, which, to be fair, it's actually very easily to do. That comes a lot later, though. We use this big stone block to kill two of the bandits right away, and we wait in stealth for Warren and the mage to reset. After killing them, the fire barrel in the ruins actually makes really quick work of all the bandits that surround it, and we easily sweep the rest of the temple, making sure to loot along the way. After getting Withers, everyone except Asterion is level 3. Our vampire spawn friend is literally 1 XP away from level 3. How? I cannot tell you, and it is something that has happened quite consistently to me. We rest up in Emerald Grove in preparation for the goblins' assault. The next couple of hours of gameplay are summarized pretty quickly. I kill some goblins, kill some harpies, do a bunch of small social interactions, and then head towards acquiring Karlach. Once we actually get Karlach, we have to deal with the Paladins of Tyr, which are actually devils in disguise hunting Karlach. The fight is a little risky since a really good hold person plus a divine smite from the enemy can completely decimate a character in a single turn. However, with some good positioning and foresight, we very easily take out the Paladins and move on. We then head over to the Blighted Village, flex our absolute powers onto the goblins, only to then immediately turn around and slaughter them while their guard is down. From there, we just do a bunch of admin stuff, mainly just camp organization, talking to the other characters, and then we move on to our first legendary encounter. The Owlbear Mother. The biggest threat about the Mother, for honor mode at least, is the fact that when she takes enough damage during combat, she screeches, which summons her mate, an entire second owlbear. The simplest solution to actually solve this issue is to just cast silence on the owlbear before attacking her. Since the silence spell prevents all noise to enter or exit its area, the cry for help isn't heard, so nobody comes to assist the owlbear this time. We have a very easy goblin fight to free Saza, and we just continue to dredge on through Act 1. I decide to move on to the Guardians within the Alchemist Basement, which is actually a spot where I died to a series of very unlucky crits. After being surprised by one Guardian, which then freed 2, which those 2 then freed the rest of the Guardians, all 7 or 8 of the Guardians basically got a turn before I even got a single action. It was kind of annoying. So this time around, I actually make sure to hide some of my characters so that they won't be surprised and we can deal with combat just a little bit more easy. The main reason we're actually down here is to get the Necromancy of Thay book and also Shovel's Spell Scroll, since it is related to an achievement. Doing a bunch of random stuff, we head towards the Knolls, not before taking a quick long rest, because we want to get the Zent shipment. We kill them, rob the Zents, and then we get the Flask. It is now where I decide to finally assault the Goblin Camp, which goes fairly well. We knock out a Minthara, but we actually make a crazy mistake. Something I've never seen before in all my time playing this game. I actually decide to ignore the goblins because I wanted to make some better positioning before Halsin breaks out. So I decide to take the option to do nothing when the goblin children are bothering Halsin. However, choosing to ignore them instead of telling them to stop or assisting them still makes Halsin hostile when he breaks out. So there are actually 2 options to make Halsin hostile and 1 option to make him not hostile. The weird thing is there's no way to turn him back. He is hostile, So instead of, letting him attack me or attack him, I decide to wipe out all the goblins and just take any hits Halsin throws at me. The problem is, even with all the goblins and the wargs dead, Halsin is still hostile. We knock him out of bear form. I thought maybe we could have an opportunity to speak with Halsin now that he's not a bear. No, he is still hostile. He just attacks and casts spells at us. So I do the only thing that I literally can do, which is to knock him out. The annoying thing though, knocking him out still registers Halsin as dead. So I guess we don't get Halsin this playthrough. The next significant thing that I do is take out the Mephits and the Woodwoads at the swamp so that we can then confront Kaga at the grove and fight the Shadow Druids. Both fights are not really noteworthy as we just clean sweep them. I then actually do something a little bit stupid. I decide I want to kill the shopkeepers at the Goblin Lair. And I wanted to loot their store, so I basically sold some stuff to them and then went to go attack them while not angering the goblins. However, this didn't work out too well. Some goblin patrols did spot me, and then the entire camp was after me. So I decide this is the best time to break out my trump card. The Iron Flask. If you didn't already know, the Iron Flask is a pretty interesting item. It contains a spectator, which, to those who aren't familiar with D&D, is essentially a low-tier beholder. It's not a true beholder, but it's still a pretty nasty fight because it has multiple eye rays that it can fire at us. It completely decimates the goblins, but not before they do actually get some decent hits on it though, making our fight against the spectator just a little bit easier. The spectator's whole strategy revolves around putting fear on a random character, paralyzing any other character or even the feared character, and then immediately flying over and biting the paralyzed creature, getting an automatic critical hit since they're paralyzed. In learning this by simply observing the first couple rounds of combat, we basically abuse the fact that it will probably target a lower health character to knock that character out of the combat, and I just end up keeping Astarion barely alive to get paralyzed and then tank the bites, usually knocking him back down. We end up with only my Tav and Karlach being barely injured, and we kind of learn what the spectator in the Underdark's going to be like. So I'm actually making a massive jump here, which is multiple hours of playtime and recorded footage that I'm just simply cutting, because it's not really related to achievements, even though it is related to 100%ing everything within Act 1. It's mostly just the Underdark fights and some exploration like the Selûnite Temple and all that. Again, not really related to the achievements, but stuff that we do have to do eventually. I actually pick up where the Face Spider Matriarch is, because for her achievement, we have to kill her before she can hatch any of her eggs, which is really killing her before she gets her turn, so turn 1. And it's basically through a combination of smoke powder barrels, haste potions, spell scrolls, and fall damage, we do actually manage to kill the Matriarch in a single turn. There's not really a lot left I have to do in Act 1. It's really the Susurr Tree, the Kuatoa, the Bullet, and the Arcane Tower. The most difficult thing about the Bullet is when it has its 100 temporary hit points, we actually can't hurt it unless we deal a minimum of 15 damage. The way we can easily manage this is by getting the Bullet to have the Wet condition, which gives it resistance to fire damage, but vulnerability to both lightning and cold damage. Vulnerability meaning it takes double damage from those sources. Once we get it wet by a simple water barrel, we just bombard it with chromatic orbs and smoke power barrels until it dies. It's actually within the Arcane Tower where I've come the closest I've gotten on this run to failing. I passed the dialogue checks with Bernard and proved to them that I was allowed to be within the tower, that I quote-unquote knew the mage before they passed. I don't really remember interacting with Bernard too much in my original run-throughs of the game. I don't think I actually reached him, but I wanted to see what his other dialogue options did now that he was friendly. Well, it turns out that no matter what, Bernard will attack you if you choose the other dialogue options. And I decided that we were so close to death that I needed to flee. So I used Karlach and basically teleported her down the tower and fled back to camp. After Karlach had already fled, Tav actually managed to get a really crazy crit with Thunderous Smite, which automatically triggered his Divine Smite for a total of 62 damage, which decimated Bernard and really pumped up the fight and allowed us to get the edge we needed to win. Karlach came back while Astarion and Shadowheart used this darkness to heal, and just Tav was unable to be hit with his high AC and shield and his invisibility thanks to the robes related to the Dark Urge. The last couple things I have to do in Act 1 is kill Anti-Ethel and deal with the Githyan Key. To kill Anti-Ethel and simultaneously save Marina, we do a Sleet Storm that can encompass both Ethel and the cage. We abuse Magic Missile to target all of the illusionary clones, revealing the real one, and to figure out which Marina is Ethel in disguise when she does this little swap crap, we look at the model. One of them is visibly pregnant. This is Marina. And just to confirm that we do have the right one, we look at the stat blocks. Marina is a level 1 commoner, while Anti-Ethel is a level 5. I actually managed to talk my way out of fighting the Githyan Key, which was a fight I was actually pretty nervous about. I remember it being super difficult, even for level 5 characters. But we actually ended up surprising the ones that started to leave, and I used a few fireballs and they dropped pretty quickly. We cleaned the rest of them pretty easily with their like 5 remaining hit points. It was a really anticlimactic way to end Act 1, but we set sail to Grimforge, having Act 1 completed. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Seriously, I mean it. Be sure to subscribe to keep up with my escapades in Baldur's Gate 3 alongside the rest of the Completionist files. This is just the pilot. Other than that, drop a comment telling me what you think is going to be the hardest fight in Baldur's Gate 3 on Honor Mode, and give it a like. It really lets me know that these are good videos and they're not complete trash. It doesn't really do anything for you, but it really means a lot to me. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time. Peace!